Coming up next, the true story of the tragedy and triumph of Dr. MelindaJoy Mingo.
Your pain has a mission attached to it.
From the hood to Hanoi and all the stops in between. Right here on Matters of the Heart with John Redmon.
It's so easy to say I love you, but somehow your affection sends me on an international pilgrimage of love. A journey that allows me to love you in Swahili, Ilovion, French, Je t'aime, Spanish, Te amo, German, Ich liebe dich, Italian, Ti amo, Swedish, Ja älskar dig, Russian, Jag lublю тебя, Chinese, Wu ani, Irish, Takla ogamert, and oh yes, Greek, Sekamo.
This is Matters of the Heart, and I am your host, John Redmon, and what a show we have for you today. Today, we have MelindaJoy Mingo with her story from the hood to Hanoi, Vietnam. Stay tuned.
Honey, what are you doing on the ladder?
This light keeps burning out. I'm going to try to fix it. I think it's the wire.
Just call American Electrician. They have the same day service. 719-520-9999.
Ah!
See? I told you to call American Electrician.
What's the number?
American Electrician. 719-520-9999.
This is Glory to Glory to Glory by Mr. Ron McMillon, live at the Stargazers Theater, right here on JBCM Radio, Matters of the Heart.
Are y'all ready? Come on, I said, are you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4.
back, and thank you all so much for tuning in to JBCM Radio. This is Matters of the Heart, and I am your host, John Redmon. And today we have our own MelindaJoy Mingo today here in the studio, interviewing her with her testimony, with her story. Can you say hi to our listening audience, Dr.
Hello,
Melinda?
listening audience.
This is Dr. MelindaJoy Mingo, and we just want you to tell us a little about yourself. Talk to us about who are you and what's your background? Where'd you come from? Where'd you grow up? We just want to know more about you.
Oh, great. Yes, I grew up in inner city Chicago in, if you know, Cabrini Green Projects. That was my turf, as we called it back then. But
Okay.
but I lived in the projects. I grew up in and also in Gary, Indiana. And by the way, my family and I, we lived probably 10 doors down from the Jackson family.
Oh.
Michael used to come over to our house, play with my little brother.
You said Michael just...
He just come over. He did, honestly.
Stop the press right now.
We showed him his moves.
You should... He stole his moves from
Stole
you.
his moves from the Mingos. But yes, so that's my background and where I grew up. I've traveled a lot, but basically Chicago, Illinois. That's my home, in Gary, Indiana. Love both. And now I'm in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and a journey of how I got here and in between all of this here. But yes, and so my background is I'm a minister.
Okay.
The church that I'm affiliated with in Colorado Springs is Relevant Word Ministries.
I know that church very well.
Yeah.
Relevant Word, Pastor Lee.
And yes, Pastor Lee, phenomenal man. But I also have a different kind of ministry, very unique. It's called Jenai, JE-NAI.
Jenai. What exactly does that mean?
It's a Chinese word, and it
okay.
means one who loves the people. But that ministry is one to the marginalized people, the kind of, we call them throwaways. There's no such thing as a throwaway, but it's what society has termed throwaways. It's the people under the bridges. It's the crack people who are on the side of the road trying to get high. It's the tattooed people. It's the depressed. It's mental illness. It's all of the people that somehow at times don't feel comfortable coming into a traditional four-wall setting.
Interesting. So that Jenai Ministries, and that is something that you spearhead?
It is. I'm the founder of it. And it actually came about, my own journey has been one of so much trauma. I was kidnapped at gunpoint when I was 17, walking the streets of Gary, Indiana, and face covered, at the hands of a gun to my head, a knife in the other hand, and I was tossed with my head covered into the back of some field. And anyway, when my eyes opened up, there was a guy standing over me, just declaring, talking about how he was going to kill me and all that. So anyway, I went through, as a result, and this will lead to your question here, but I went through such a traumatic time of fear, and mistrust of people. I'm just being honest.
Yes.
I was not a Christian, wasn't in church. One thing about church was, to be honest, didn't like church. I'm just going to be honest.
Real talk.
I'm just going to be honest with you. I saw the people who in church with the dresses on, and I would go and stand and make...
How dare they have dresses on?
How dare they have the wrong dresses on and make fun of people and stuff.
Go on now.
And it was during that time when I survived that whole crisis of being kidnapped at gunpoint, but I went through such a traumatic time. And the people who really, that I made fun of, that I stood in front of church and threw bricks at, it's the truth. I wasn't the best person during that time, running with gangs and all that. And we used to stand there. We used to badger people who were in church. Wow. And the people who came alongside me to help me heal were people who were in the same church that I used to throw the rocks at the door. So Jenai, one who loves the people, it came about through a journey of me being in Vietnam. I got an opportunity to go to Vietnam for 5 years between 2005 to maybe a little bit more to 2011 as a professor to teach. I'm a law professor and HR management professor. And while I was over there, the thing that so touched my heart, John, I'm going to be honest with you, is that we so stereotype people. We so always talk about who has what. We polarize ourselves, and we like people who can shop here, who can do that, and all that kind of stuff. And I just got sick of it, sick and tired of it. And while I was in Vietnam, I learned the fact that I had rats in Cabrini Green in Chicago in the projects, and there were rats in Vietnam. I had nothing in Chicago. I grew up in extreme poverty and homelessness in Chicago, and I've sat in the alleys in Vietnam, and I made friends in Vietnam, heart to heart, and my best friend was beheaded while I was there in Vietnam.
You said your best friend was beheaded?
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
No, she was beheaded and dismembered, and I was so traumatized again.
Of course.
Of loss, and I was sitting in the alley, and I was sitting just there weeping, and I kept thinking, how am I now going to reach people? Not the traditional people who feel like they got it all together, can't be real, can't be transparent. How am I going to reach people who've gone through trauma, who tired of talking about church, tired of talking about God? And that's how Jedi came, one who loves the people. And my mission was just to go throughout the world, wherever it might be, and really just be the love of God to people.
So that's the background of where Jedi came from.
Yes.
Wow, how painful. But through pain, it seems like you've shined some light and some hope for others through that pain, through your best friend dismemberment and beheading. Wow, that's just. But now your ministry is in the street.
It is.
And
yeah.
it's to reach the unreachable and touch the untouchable, and those who actually aren't in church, you're taking the church to them.
Yes, I want to take the church, and I want to help people understand that, to, like you said, to reach the unreachable, to touch the untouchable, and I really want to love the unlovable.
Wow,
that's my mission in
that's
life.
beautiful.
I'm like, if I can be seriously, if I can be remembered for nothing else, not degrees, not any of that. If I can be remembered that I can sit with anybody, I can sit with the man or woman who hasn't had a bath for 2 weeks, for that person that look like they about to steal your shoes off your feet. I'm like just anybody, and so yeah, I do street ministry. I have a team of people go out with me, and the one criteria is that when you go out not prejudging, don't have any stereotypes, because stereotypes is listening to labels. You can't have any labels for anybody out here. I don't care if they spit on you or whatever. If you go out here, you got to go out here being real, and you got to go out here giving people something other than opening the Bible. Because when I've been called, I was a chaplain at the rescue mission here in Colorado Springs.
Yes.
And when I was called out for people who are thinking about committing suicide and they got 1 foot on the edge of a bridge, they're not thinking about you got a PhD, a DDD. They don't care if you're a bishop, evangelist. They want to know, why should I not jump over this bridge? You need to tell me something.
What reasons do you give? When you actually find yourself in that predicament, when you're on the other end of that phone? Because I had something similarly happen to me. What advice do you give? What do you say?
I tell people this here, and you don't have long, but I really pray, and I just say to people this here, there's a reason why your foot is over here and you're ready to drop. I said, but there's another reason why you should be here, and that's the reason you probably haven't heard. You probably heard all the reasons why you need to go over here to the side of the road, but you have something to give. Your pain has a mission attached to it.
Come on now.
You don't just go through stuff to go through. I'm like, if you would just take your foot off of the edge of that ledge and come back, you don't know whose life you're going to touch. I tried to take my life when I was 14. 14, hadn't even gotten into high school yet. But, and people would come to me and, MJ, because they call me MJ, you're here. And I'm like, it doesn't mean anything. You have nothing but platitudes to me. I said, you need to tell me immediately why I need to not try to take my life again.
Wow.
And so I think there's just an opportunity to really reach people, and to really be loved. Not to just, if we could really go out here and be loved to a hurting world, it's going to be everything. Because people are broken. Everybody's broken. It doesn't matter. White, black, Jewish, Asian, wealthy Wall Street, the people who under the street. Everybody's hurting and broken. And if we could go out and actually let go of ourselves and trying to be famous and in positions and all that, maybe we could really impact some people.
Aren't selfies fun? I love using them for my profile pictures. Look at me. I'm in the bathroom. I'm at the beach. I'm at the zoo. But I'm a kid. Are you? Shouldn't you have a professional portrait for your business profile? You need to call Jay Billups, 719-299-0879. JayBillupsPhotography.com. JayBillups Photography.com. 719-299-0879.
Hello, this is Sylvia Tessiri. I want you to have my latest 6-month full-page wall calendar.
Caliente.
From the bedroom to the beach. See my never-before published images in color and classic black and white.
Ay, Dios mío.
Just go to my website, calendar.sylviatessiri.com, and get yours so I can see you every day.
Get yours today at sylviataziri.com. Sylvia, Taziri.com.
Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Matters of the Heart, and I am your host, John Redmon, right here at JBCM Radio. And we are interviewing the one and the only, the legend herself, Dr. MelindaJoy Mingo. Thank you so much for being here with us and bearing your heart and your story with us today, Dr. Mingo. So we want to know a little more about you and your family. Tell us about, are you married?
I was married and my husband died.
So sorry to hear that. How long were you married?
My husband and I were married 11 years, and it's interesting because when we look at situations that we go through and pain in our lives, that was probably the most catharsis moment in my life. And people listening would probably say, well, a lot of people have lost individuals, but it's not just the loss of that. I mean, my family, there's 6 siblings in my family. And my father was accidentally killed. He was walking across the railroad track and his pants, they got caught on the track.
Mercy.
So he was crushed to death. So I had that loss. And then I was engaged. Before I met my husband, I was actually engaged to another guy who actually died before we had the wedding. He died of leukemia.
Mercy.
And so through that journey, I was then, I had given my life to God and I was just trusting God. And I said, God, I've had so much loss and trauma in my life. And I know people go through stuff, but at some point, you talk about faith in God and you hear all the people talking about God is good and he just hold on. And so God brought my husband to my life and I was like, wow, someone who really is blessing to me. We love life together. We do life together. And then we decided probably the 10th, almost 11th year being married, that we were going to move from Arizona to Colorado Springs, where I'm living now. Okay. And we had been here a few months in the city, probably 2, actually. And I was getting ready for an interview. As a professor, I'm a professor. And as I was getting ready for a wonderful job interview, my husband came around a corner crawling on his hands and knees in a pool of blood. Mercy. And so every part of him, there was blood from his rectum, his mouth, his nose, just being honest. I was traumatized. He was covered in blood. I called 911 and, I thought he was gone and they had me resuscitate him till they got there. This was 2 months after getting into the city of Colorado Springs. He was in the hospital. They said, your husband needs a liver transplant. His liver's shutting down, but he's going to be okay. And I prayed and I had people around me who were giving me scriptures. And God said that he's not going to take from you. You've had so much loss, MelindaJoy. This time it's going to be different. And so 6 months to the date of moving to Colorado Springs, I was at the cemetery at Fort Logan, and I was burying my husband. And I just have to say this here, because we always want to give people platitudes when they have pain in their life. Mm-hmm. We always want to tell them to be strong and to have faith. And I was standing over my husband's casket, I'm just going to keep it real, yes, while they were lowering that at Fort Logan Cemetery. And I had someone from church come to me and say to me, do you love God? Wow. And I told him, I said, I don't. Not at this moment, I don't.
Real talk.
And I'm so tired of you all as Christians always coming up with another scripture to try to soothe the pain of someone instead of really just maybe being there for them, rather than maybe just asking God what to do. And I was like, that's the reason why I said, no, I don't love God. And if this is what God has for me, just another painful loss and another person from church standing over me, telling me why I should have faith, this is not the time. And I don't have faith in God because God obviously doesn't love me. I'm going to keep this real. He obviously doesn't love me because you're sitting there. You have your place. You wasn't with me in the homeless shelter. You wasn't with me when I lived in my car. You wasn't with me when I had all this stuff. You wasn't with me when I stood on my father's casket. And so you're asking me that. And I tell you that one statement is interesting enough. It plunged me into a dislike of church. And I had been in church. I was this evangelist. I was directing the mass choir. I'm just keeping it real. I was singing and all that. And I was like, I'm so sick of all this here Christianese stuff. I'm over it. I'm just tired of it. And I'm telling you the truth. It might not be the best thing for listeners to hear for what I'm getting ready to say, but I'm just going to keep it real and say, I took my Bible and I threw it across the room on the wall. And I said, God, I'm so sick of you.
Real talk.
I'm just sick of you.
Yes, come on.
I'm sick of you always talking about us have faith. I'm sick of you always telling us about how we're to have hope. And yet, we seem to continually go through all these places of pain and loss. And I need something beyond another scripture. And I threw that Bible across the room. And nope, I didn't have any angel come in the room. I didn't have an encounter with God. I'm just going to be honest. I didn't have this sky open up. I went on the next week and I said, don't talk to me about God anymore. I am going my way. And if there's really a God, he will have to pursue me. I will no longer pursue a God that continually allows me to be in a place of pain. I will no longer do that. Just tired of religion. And I saw this say this here. It was a very tragic, painful moment. I plunged into a place of despair, depression. And I also believe that as believers, we have to be real. We have to be vulnerable and transparent. Because see, now I got the PhD and I got the master's and I'm a doctor. But I tell people I ain't always been a doctor. I studied for my bachelor's degree under a shelter, homeless shelter, when I was ashamed for people to drop me off. And I would walk miles from my class at night, because I didn't want anybody to know that I was living in a shelter and I get a pass to study. And I said, it's not so much the accomplishments and accolades. It's what people have had to overcome. It's what they've had to really fight and go press past in order to attain something. That's the thing that means something. Not that you got a DDD or a PhD. I'm just being honest. I'm not discrediting that because I have that, but that doesn't mean anything to me if you don't have character and if your heart is not pure toward other people. But I'll just say that as a result of that, I spent a year in dark depression. It was very dark. I would go to church a little bit, but just couldn't do it anymore. I would lay on my floor and I would cry. And people were like, but MJ, you're a Christian and you're a minister. I said, it doesn't matter. You keep labeling ministers like they're superhuman beings. This is not a Marvel comic book. We hurt.
Yes.
And we have pain.
Yes.
And it's either one or two. You either got people putting folks up on a pedestal or either you knocking them down because you see their brokenness. Right. And I said, so I'm nowhere. So anyway, I would just say through that journey, John, it was a painful loss, a painful journey for me. I came through depression. I came through panic attacks and anxiety. All that stuff kicked back up in my life from inner city Chicago, from being kidnapped, from being bullied in school, from being beat up consistently, from having my hair cut when I was standing in line in a cafeteria, from being at gunpoint in high school. All of it came back again. And at some point, the moment again for me to really trust God, it wasn't a big booming moment. It was a silent moment when I sat in all my despair on the floor because I didn't have a bed to sleep on after my husband died. I had $20. I tell people I didn't have no 401k, A, or J. The only thing I had was just the Lord watching over me. And so he redeemed me. He restored me. And he brought me to a place of loving him. and loving him beyond the pain and loving him beyond the struggle. And now, I tell people sometimes we're always peeking beyond the weeds. And peeking beyond the weeds means that we know that we're hurting and we're struggling and we don't want to be real and we don't want to be transparent. And we're leading in the weeds. We're leading in brokenness. People are leading and going home and taking a drink at night. People are leading and going home and they're mad with their kids and their family. People are trying to lead in places where they know they're in weeds. And so for me, when God redeemed me and restored me, my life mission is to be one who will be known as loving the people, no matter where they are.
From the time I was a little child, I'd always heard of you. And I'd seen with my own eyes the wondrous things that you could do. But in spite of all I'd seen and heard, still this question came to me: why must I suffer so if God knows what is best for me? As my nights and days turned into months and months turned into years, I could see my trust turn into doubt and my faith into fear. But in spite of all the bitterness, through the darkness I could see there was a reason for the test, and God knew what was best for me. So with everything within me, I say yes to thee, oh Lord. Even though my faith gets weak, I'm standing on your word. So forgive me, Lord, for doubting you. In your way I cannot see. Now I rest assured that you know what is best for me. So let the faint of heart take courage. Let the weak one say, I'm strong. God will exchange your gloom for gladness and your sadness for a song. Do not cast away your confidence. God will always see you through. He knows just what to do, and he knows what is best for you. So with everything within me, I say yes to thee, oh Lord. Even though my faith gets weak, I'm standing on your word. So forgive me, Lord, for doubting you. In your way I cannot see. Now I rest all sure that you know what is best for me. Now I rest all sure that you know what is best for me.
That was God Knows Best by Shirley Miller from the John Redmon and Friends Faith, Love, and Unity album, Volume 1. And right before that, Precious Lord by John Redmon, Piano Series, Gospel Classics. back. We are back. Thank you all so much for staying with us here at Matters of the Heart. I am your host, John Redmon, and we are hearing a heartfelt testimony from our own Dr. MelindaJoy Mingo. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable to us and opening your heart to us and just being so transparent. This is just what this show is all about. We want people to know that there are real people that actually have a testimony that has not been all roses and daisies and all covered with flower beds. And you are actually talking about your pain and tragic moments that have happened all throughout your life, yet still here you are, and you're still going out after people, telling them about the goodness of the Lord and loving them back to him, even in the streets. And so we just really admire you for that. You actually mentioned you were homeless while studying for your bachelor's degree. This is just blowing my mind because you don't hear stuff like this. I love success stories. And like I hear the Tyler Perry's stories of how he was homeless in his car, but he was still writing, for theaters and saying, I don't care if I'm homeless. I have a vision. I have a passion. I have a calling, and it's going to happen. So tell me what was going through your head while you were homeless, yet you were still studying for your bachelor's in school. I mean, just enlighten us.
I was living in Gary, Indiana during the time, and through poor choices, to be honest, I ended up on the streets, and I didn't have anywhere to go. And so I had my suitcase, and I would sit in doctor's office, waiting rooms, bus stations, and finally a spot opened up at a shelter. And I got there, and what's interesting is that, how some people, when they talk about their experiences, it's always the negative part about it. And no, it was not the best, being with strangers on either side of me and all that stuff. But at some point in that shelter, I thought I was only going to be there like a month. And I said, I'm getting out of this mess. And then 4 months later, I was still in there. Wow. And I realized that I had to do something. I had to have a motivation beyond my circumstances, beyond people trying to encourage me. And I enrolled at Indiana University Northwest. And I started taking my classes to be an art teacher. I love art and creative things. Wow. And it didn't pan out. But anyway, I would go to class, and I was too embarrassed to let people know I was at a shelter. I had a special pass to get in at night. And I would walk sometimes. My classes were in at 10 at night, and I would walk miles. And because I wouldn't let people drop me off, and I would get to that shelter. And then at some point, probably 8 months after being there, and I would study under the blankets because the lights go off, and I didn't get any special privilege to have utilities on in the shelter.
You were studying under the blankets?
I did. I had a little flashlight, and I would study my lessons under the blanket. And I tell you, John, it's really something, because at some point my whole attitude and perception changed about being there. And I'm like, look at these people here. You got people who are mentally challenged in here, physically disabled. My best friend was a guy who was blind, and people would make fun of him. And I got a chance to sit with him, and he began to help build me up. Your identity, MelindaJoy, is not about the shelter. It's not about fingertips. It's not about your dress. It's not about looks. It's about, who are you? Who did God say you were? And he couldn't even see me. But all he kept saying is that you have a beautiful soul, beautiful spirit. And he said, go to school. Go do something that you want to do. And so I did, and I graduated from there. And yes, it was a wonderful accomplishment. But for me, it wasn't just a degree. It was the fact that I had to press beyond my circumstances.
Yes, you did.
To do something a little bit different.
That is so beautiful. Sound like that blind friend of yours was your angel.
Oh, he was wonderful, man. He got shot in the face.
Mercy.
And he wasn't born blind, but again, all the trauma where I lived, and for people who understand that, it's not just a movie on the screen, it's a life. But there's people still in these neighborhoods who are good people who need chances. So he was an angel, and he was a friend to me. And to this day, I'll say this here. This has been years ago. I don't see him anymore. He's married, but every day on my birthday, he calls me, and he says, are you still walking and who you supposed to be? 15 years, every day.
15 years later, you still get that phone call. Well, tell me about this, Dr. Mingo. Who are those key people in your life who are actually made such an indelible impression on you? You're like, you all keep me inspired to keep me going.
Thank you. I have the pastor that I'm co-laboring with here at Relevant Word Ministries. Just such a champion, and I mean has just been there for me. I mean, and another pastor friend of mine, his name is Calvin. He has just championed me as a woman, not just a female minister. I know we talk about that because there's challenges for women in ministry. And it's perception and it's okay. And I don't judge all that, but it's challenges. And so they have lifted me up. They have stooped down and allowed me to stand on their shoulders when I could not raise up. And it's interesting. Another role model for me is Corrie ten Boom. And I don't know if you know her, but she was a woman who Dutch watchmaker, and she was a Christian way back in the day. But she and her family, they actually helped many Jews escape from the Nazis and the Holocaust.
Yes.
And she hid them, and she took a risk to be courageous, to hide them. And she ended up being in prison, trying to help them through that. And so for me, what stands out to me when I think of role models are people who are courageous in spite of, and that they go beyond themselves to think of other people. There are people who are willing to sacrifice. There are people who go beyond the norm to do something for someone else. And my mother is my role model. When her husband died, my mom raised 6 kids. She worked in the laundry for years. And one of her greatest accomplishments is that Jerry Lewis sang to her in an elevator.
That is something that goes down in history for her. I know, that's beautiful. Wow.
And my role models really are not people with titles, if I may say that.
Absolutely.
My role models are people who live it daily, people who walk it out, people who overcome odds and obstacles to reach back and get somebody else.
Wow, you are really a trailblazer, and you're actually one of those people that we actually look at and say, wow, you know, if she could go through all that, then maybe there's hope for me. Yes. What would you say to that person out there who's listening, who is thinking about, I'm stuck in this bad situation, or I can't achieve anything, or I think that there's no hope for me. I can't raise my kids, or my kids have been taken away from me, or I've just been served up an eviction notice, or I'm going to be living in a homeless shelter now and my life is over, or I'm on the street now with a sign. And how would you encourage those people if they actually were able to tune in right now and to hear your testimony and to hear your voice? What would you have to say to them?
Thank you. I would say to all of you who are listening, whether it's an eviction notice, whether you're just fed up with life, I want you to trust your struggles. And what I mean by that is, again, I said your pain has a mission attached to it. Your circumstances don't define you. Your lack doesn't define you. What people say for you or against you, none of that defines you. You have to see yourself as a person of value, worth, and dignity. I don't care if you have one dress or one pair of pants. You are a person of worth or value. I don't care if you have to go and buy ramen noodle for a month. You are a person of worth and value. If you have to take your kids to McDonald's and buy them $1 hamburger, don't let people share with you that you're not doing the right thing. So see yourself, trust your struggles. Your pain has a mission attached to it. And I'm going to say that God is faithful. He's faithful, not just when you feel like you're in that place and you're clapping and you're happy and you're shouting. He's faithful when you feel lower than an ant. And that's the time when he reaches down to you. And I'll just say this last thing here too, is that if you were standing in a puddle of mud, and as you were standing there talking to someone, and all of a sudden it started raining and you see the storm, and maybe you don't know how to get out, take one step out. Take one step, do something. Because if you stay in that puddle of mud, when the sun does come out, you're stuck. Because the mud has now turned to concrete. Take a step, take one step. If it's one step a day, if it's just thinking differently, just again, see yourself differently. Don't see yourself according to society, circumstances. See yourself as a person valuable. I don't care what your race, your ethnicity, your socioeconomic status is. I don't care if you have hair, you don't have any hair. If you're laying on a board right now and you've had chemo, you can't get no manicure, no pedicure. God is the cure.
Oh my goodness.
Just be encouraged.
On that note, we'll be right back. Thank you so much for tuning in to Matters of the Heart. This is John Redmon here at JBCM Radio. And oh my goodness, just having a great time with Dr. MelindaJoy Mingo. And wow, just thank you so much for being here. This is just like, you have no idea. It's just like giving me just like chills, just listening to your testimony. And this is a real testimony. I guess my takeaway phrase from this whole interview is, Your pain has a mission attached to it.
Yes.
I said I wanted a T-shirt of that.
Yeah, you should get a T-shirt.
I want a T-shirt.
and give me one too.
I'll get you one too. I'll put your name right there at the end.
Thank you.
By Dr. MelindaJoy Mingo. So tell us about this. We talked about your pain and your hurt and your struggle. We want to know about an exhilarating, victorious, happiest moment that you've experienced in professionally or personally. What would that be?
I think one of my happiest moments was when I went to Africa. I was invited to go to Kenya in 2000 to really share my life story with a lot of teens and young people there. And what was so wonderful about it is that because of the journey I had of being kidnapped and all, I was claustrophobic. And so I kept thinking, I don't think I can be on the airplane that long going overseas unless you knock me out. And so it was so exhilarating that I was able to push past my fears, John, and get on that plane, eat peanuts, watch a movie. And when I got off the plane in Kenya, I was like, man, I'm so happy to be here. But beyond being here, I actually overcame my fears to get here.
Wow.
And the drums were beating, the kids were waiting. And so I realized during that time that, the phrase you just said, my pain has a mission attached to it. That was the startup point of I was invited to Kenya, to Ethiopia, 5 years in Hanoi, Vietnam, teaching at 4 universities in Vietnam, in South America. I was invited to Vanuatu, outside the Fiji Islands. So that's why the book titled From the Hood to Hanoi and All the Stops in Between, it means so much to me. I mean, I've got a chance to be on the Navajo Reservation in Arizona to really still the same message that you are a person of value, worth, and dignity. Whether you're Navajo Reservation, Kenya. So the exhilarating moment for me was the aha moment of, okay, God, this is why I'm here still. I'm here. Yes, there's the tragedy, but there's the triumph too. And sometimes we stick with the tragedy and we never get to the triumph. Either we way up here to triumph
and we forget about the tragedy. Or we try to cover up the tragedy.
Or try to cover it up.
Pretend like,
everything's good. It's all good.
Coming up roses all my life. But this is beautiful. So From the Hood to Hanoi and All the Stops in Between is a book.
It is.
You are an author. Tell us about that. Is it in the process? Is it out? Tell us a little more about that.
From the Hood to Hanoi and All the Stops in Between. It's a book in process. I was actually contacted by a national publishing company here, surprisingly. And they asked me if I would just write my stories. And I would write it from the perspective of intertwining together cultures and how we're more alike than we are different. I know we have a lot going on in our society today, but to encourage people that we're human beings. And so I'm writing that story. I'm weaving in my stories in there, but I'm also talking about every stop in between where I had to have a pause moment, where I had to check my attitude. I had to get that thing right. I had to realize that, this is not the MJ show. But it's God really allowing me to go some places. So all the stops in between were necessary for me to continue to go. And it's not over yet. I don't know what's next, but hopefully it'll be a little more where I can touch the lives of people.
And that was my next question. What exactly can we expect from you and your ministry in the near future? What's planned? What's on the horizon?
I'm hopeful. I just got back from the Middle East, and I was invited over there to really talk with people around the world about culture. So my passion right now is definitely helping people to understand who Jesus is, not what he is, but who he is. And so I want to take that message, whether it's the underground church or wherever. I'm hoping that I can be a voice of mobilizing people together, not just one person doing, but mobilizing people together. It's so interesting. I won this, well, it wasn't a competition, but I was selected to be Miss Elite Colorado. So
that sounds awesome. What is that?
It's a pageant. It's today's International Woman. And so it's an international consensus of women all over the world. And you're not chosen for beauty. I mean, that's too sad, but that's not the deciding factor. You're actually chosen for acts of service throughout the world. Wow. And I got selected for that. And I said, what am I going to look like with a crown and a sash on? And then I realized.
Jay's up here laughing.
I know. And already it's opened doors. I've had people, men and women, call me from all over. You know, my platform really is the same thing. It's the value, worth, and dignity of every person. And I started an organization called Help Me to Help You. And that organization is, again, a platform where, because my husband died of liver cancer, we didn't have any insurance. I drove around streets with him in the back of my car trying to get help. Wow. So I raised money, and I try to raise money to help people who are struggling with treatments for chemo, whatever it might be. And so I want to start that back. I want to just really be the heart and hands of Jesus out here. I really do. And again, if no one ever remembers me from Miss Colorado, Miss Asia, whatever it might be, I would just be remembered as a woman who loved people and pointed them to God.
That is how I would definitely want to be remembered as well. This has just been an absolute joy, just no play on words, interviewing you, Dr. MelindaJoy Mingo. Tell the listening audience how they can get in contact with you. They want a tangible person. People these days want a tangible Jesus.
Yes.
They want somebody who actually represents him, not just in name, but in character and spirit. How can they contact Dr. MelindaJoy Mingo?
There's several ways. My email is changelifesignificant, one word, changelifesignificant@gmail.com. And then also, I have a Facebook page, which is Significant Life Change, Inc. You can reach me on there. And through those two, I'm on LinkedIn as well. But definitely, my email is Change Life Significant. And that's a play on words for, as I do life coaching, and my organization is called Significant Life Change. Yeah, that would be great. And I would love to just connect with people and hopefully, perhaps, what I really feel, John, right now is it's about collaboration.
Yes.
It really is. It's not, one person can reach, we say each one reach one, but I'm not just satisfied with reaching one.
Come on now.
I want to see if each one of us connect with another one, then we can really reach the heart of the world.
We can reach the heart of the world. I'm going to ask you to do something probably way out of the ordinary, but it is probably not out of the ordinary for you. Can you offer a prayer here on the internet radio station here at JVCM and just pray for those who are listening who might be in the valley of decision about accepting Jesus or thinking about ending their life or moving forward or not, or going down the path of their dreams, or staying in a horrible situation that they know they just need the faith and the power to actually move past. Can you just offer a prayer to those people who are right now in that zone? And we're going to agree with you, whatever you pray for these individuals.
Father, we just thank you for this awesome opportunity to be on this radio show. And God, we thank you that for those listeners, God, I just pray for them. I pray hope over them. I pray strength, God. I pray your word in Jeremiah 32:27. And it says that you are the Lord, the God of all flesh. There is absolutely nothing too difficult for you to do. Yes. So whatever the listeners are facing, I don't even have to call it out. They know, whether it's illness, whether it's despondency and despair, or hopelessness, and even for those who are in ministry who might be listening, I just pray, God, that you would heal and bring a balm of healing to them as well. God, I pray that we will lift our eyes to you, because ultimately, even Father, when we don't feel like it and we don't have the strength, you never leave us, you never forsake us. And somehow I would just say, I pray that for every person listening, that they will begin to see themselves truly as a person who is loved by you, God. They're not throwaways. There's no such thing. We talk about the least of them. There's no such thing. We talk about the most of them. There's no such thing. We're all one, because we're all one and we're all equal at the foot of the cross. I just pray you bless them and strengthen them. In Jesus' name, amen.